We're back in the garage again today to replace the steering head bearings on this bike. It's got an advisory on the MOT, a little bit notchy, a little bit of play. So we're going to replace them with a non-standard set. These are needle roller bearings. A bit of an upgrade should make the steering slightly smoother. So we're going to check the head bearings, we're going to move them side to side, and what we are feeling is it's a self-centering effect. And what that means is when you push the steering over to one side, it's nice and smooth, the other side nice and smooth. In the centre, it's finding its own point. The other thing to check for is movement, lateral movement, backwards and forwards in this. If you've got movement in here, you will probably find that you'll feel the same movement when you apply the brakes. A bit of a clunk, not too severe, but something that you would feel through the steering and the handlebars. We have a Allen key here at the top, one on the other side, and the lower ones are a couple more down here. This is the only thing that's holding the forks on. Now we're going to try and keep the handlebar assembly all together and remove the minimum amount of equipment from the bike. We started by taking off the front calipers. This enables us to remove the wheel and obviously less weight on the forks. These will be tied up out of the way, so we're not putting undue pressure on our lines. Once that's off, we're going to take the wheel off, and then under there we have got two Allen keys. Going to be removing them and then taking out the forks individually. I've already loosened the top ones off, so it should come straight out. We have a couple of 8mm bolts holding the brake line in place. Once removed, we've got these two out the way, and there we go. So we've got a little location bung at the back there, and we're going to hang them out of the way, and then we can get these forks out in one piece. So we started to take out the forks. As you can see, we've got the more of a fork length sticking out now, and you can just about see the tops of the fork legs. Once this is removed, we'll then slacken off the steering head bearings and take out the whole set. Now I'm going to loosen that off. Once that's out, we can take the handlebar assembly off. I'm going to put something on the tank to stop it getting scratched, and then we've got the two castellated nuts underneath to release the headstock. We now remove the handlebar assembly. Underneath we have a washer and a rubber washer. These are to stop these from coming out of line. I'm going to loosen the top off. C-spanner will do this, and then once you've slackened that one off, we slacken the bottom one off, and the shaft with the bearings on should drop through. So here we have the steering assembly. Larger ball bearings at the bottom, smaller set at the top, and these are going to be replaced by the needle roller bearings. These are tapered, so we're going to be careful on how much torque we put into that so that we don't over tighten them. Next job is to take out the other half of the shell, which is located in this area. I've got a special tool for this, but you can use anything up from a chisel up to a bearing extractor. This one needs to come upwards and the lower one needs to be knocked downwards. Now we're lucky on this bike that in the frame we have a small cutout which enables us to get the tool down the side from the top to knock out the bearing. So we've not got a complete circle, but we do have a little cutout. You can probably just about see it on the side there. So knocking up from below with our little tool, we now take out the bearing shell. And you can see a little bit more clearly the little cutouts at either side, which enables you to get from behind the bearing shell to pop it out. So having removed most of the bearing sections, we've now got a dust or oil seal at the bottom. I'm assuming that will keep the grease in as well. And then we're just going to remove the bottom end of the race. So this is the other part of that bearing. As you can see from this, it is a ball bearing type in a plastic cage, and that fitted into that one. So his next job is removal of this. It might require a little bit of heat to get it off, and we've got to clean up the rust around the edge. So as you can see, we've moved over to the vise, and we're using the persuader and a chisel, carefully tapping the back of the bearing to moving it up the quite a tight tolerance fit inner on the shaft. Once this is removed, we'll clean it up, look for any marks or debris before assembly. So we've now pressed on the bottom half of the bearing. This is the other half that will sit on top, and then obviously that is the one that we're going to push back into the bike frame. So then we've got the bearing complete. These are obviously going to be greased up again before installation, just to make sure we've got enough grease on and that everything will run smoothly. So we've now positioned the outer of the bearing in position. I'm going to tap it in as far as we can using a bit of oak wood, and this will allow us to get it seated. So once it's seated, we can no longer go any further. We're going to have to go to the top now and work on the top bearing. So we've now got the top bearing outer in position, just loosely. We're trying to straighten up as much as we can. And again, what we're going to do is going to tap around the edge with the wood, trying to get to drive that in. Once it's driven in far enough, we use a threaded section that will allow us to pull it in further. So we now have our threaded bar and our drift at the top. This is the same diameter as the outside shell of the bearing, and all we'll do is tighten this up. As we tighten this up, it will bring in the outer shell and into the seat area. Once it's seated, then obviously we back it off, and then we're ready for our bearings. So we've greased up the bearing bottom and top. We insert the steering stem into the frame and then move round to the top to insert the top bearing and the retaining collar and that top nut. Obviously we're going to torque these up a little bit different to where they were on the other ball bearing sets, but it will still function. So once we've tightened all that up, then it's just a case of assembling everything back together. So now we've got our dust seal, we've got our first collar on, and then we're going to be putting the lock nut on top of that. And once again, we're going to tighten that up slightly and feel for any play in the bearings before tightening that onto the top to lock it up. We'll then assemble all the controls back on, handlebar mounts, but first we've got to put on the forks. So we're now going to put the fork legs back in. These should go back in easily if the screws are out, just slightly twisting the forks as we go. Bear in mind that some of the weight will now come back onto the front end as we load up with the weight on these front forks. So once they're in place, we'll nip up as bolts and put it back on our handlebar assembly. Handlebars refitted, nut installed for the centre. We've got Allen keys both sides for the top yoke, and we've made sure we've got the same amount of forks showing through the top. At the bottom we've got 2 Allen keys and bottom yokes. We've got to install brake line holders, and then our next job is fitting the front wheel and calipers. So we've now assembled everything, installed the front wheel and the calipers. And when we moved the wheel from lock to lock, got no binding whatsoever, no self-centering. You've got nice smooth steering. One thing that did help me was this Sealy kit with the Allen keys in. This enabled me to get to those tricky, hard to get to sections up there. So getting these open and off with a normal Allen key would have been impossible. Anyway guys, that's our job for today done. See you next time.